Welcome to the Life Science Success Podcast. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Don, and I'm a consultant in life sciences. And one of the things that I really focus in on is operational excellence and helping companies, focus in on that. One of the things we've been doing a lot of lately is helping companies with Lean, Six Sigma, value stream mapping, really troubleshooting deep problems inside of organizations. And so, for anybody that's looking for across our life sciences sector, looking for help with people, process, and technology, we could definitely help you. So with that, let me bring in my guest today. So on the Life Science Success Podcast, we're welcoming back Dr. AJ Mellott. Dr. Mellott's the CEO and co-founder of Ronawk, the manufacturer of customized tissue-mimetic technology that's advancing science. And so welcome back, AJ.
Thanks, Don. I really appreciate the invite, and I'm excited to be back.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. And it's funny because last year, I think right around the same exact time, I had I
hmm
had had back my first guest in the podcast. And so December is kind of seems to be one of those months where people want to come back, and I would imagine eventually January as well. People will want to come back and give their
hmm
give their update for the year. So yeah, welcome back.
But hey, thank you. That's always a good time to give updates. So yeah, we're all getting prepared for our board meetings or whatnot, or closing of the year.
Yeah, so for anybody that doesn't know you, can you just briefly tell everybody about who you are and what you're doing currently in Ronawk?
Yeah. So I'm Dr. AJ Malott. As Don said, I'm the CEO. I'm also the co-founder of Ronawk. And what we do here at Ronawk is we make these hydrogel substrates that are tissue mimetic. And what that means is that we can actually um, produce these substrates that can mimic virtually any tissue in the human or animal body mechanically. And so this is great because we help a lot of clients that are growing a variety of different cells for different diseases and other applications. And when they use our substrate and they culture their cells within it, they get these really high quality, really active cells that also produce a lot of secretions that contain different biological factors that get used in today's medicines and diagnostics. So it's a really simple way that we can dramatically improve on cell culture technology.
And I guess the other thing that we should mention, so you're are you located in Kansas?
We are. We just moved this past year to Overland Park, Kansas. We started in Olathe, Kansas, and we moved just a couple miles north to Overland Park, Kansas.
Okay, very good. And I guess the other thing that we should sort of update everybody on is how long has the company been around?
The company has been around for over 4.5 years. Actually, we're coming up on our 5-year anniversary here in February. So, enough to get going, but still pretty young in our life.
And then in terms of the updates with Ronak, what's going on? What's new?
So, since we last talked, Ronawk has gotten really, really busy in a lot of great ways. The last time I was on the podcast, we were in the process of moving into our new lab. We're now situated, all of our new equipment's in. We've expanded from 13 people to 18 people. We've got some great key talent, and there's just been a lot of work that's gone into improving our production practices and what we can do. So, for the first time, we actually have um, way more blocks than we know what to do with. And so, our sales and marketing guys have been really excited because I can turn them loose. And that's led to the starting of just a whole bunch of different pilot projects around the country. And even we're having this cool phenomenon now where our products get into one lab and then like an adjacent lab sees what's going on, and then we had a lab recent, they cold called us and they're like, hey, my colleague across the hall is using your product. How do I get some? And that was really validating. I'm like, awesome, okay, yes. um, so it's really neat, and then we get to help them depending on what cell type they're doing. And actually then in another case, what's been truly fascinating, and this was one of the goals I had for the technology for from the very beginning, is we have now had researchers that most people I know, I think there's a lot of encouragement to be interdisciplinary. But now we've had instances where researchers in two different areas, so say, for example, um, somebody working on a neuronal cell line and somebody working on a cancer cell line, are able to directly interface using our technology because we lower the barrier of resources, technical ability, time, and just that ability to make it really easier to go from point A to point B almost instantaneously. And so they're starting these new projects that weren't possible before because of our tech. And so that has just, it's been thrilling.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
It has to be. It has to be very fulfilling as well to sort of know that that you're having that impact as well in terms of other
Hmm.
people's research.
Yeah. And that was the goal when my co-founder and I started the company. We had our research backgrounds, but we were really passionate about helping people. And we saw all these problems in the life sciences process. We're like, well, if we can just help with this one thing that's upstream, how many people could we help accelerate the research? How many opportunities could we create? And what would be the downstream impact of ultimately helping patients that maybe are suffering from cancer? Or, as I mentioned in the last podcast, we're both really passionate about helping the warfighter and our service members. So when it comes to like wound healing, um, just really allowing those floodgates to be opened for researchers with their current resources and being able to do so much more, but do it easily and not, burden them. Um, that we're starting to see that happen, the first beginnings of that. And like I said, it's very thrilling. It's very fulfilling as well.
So what is the difference? I'm going to ask you a very sort of junior question here, probably
Uh-huh.
in your biologist mind, is
Uh-huh.
that what is the difference between tissue mimetic versus like tissue on a chip? So I know that both technologies are out there. Just curious, what
Hmm.
is the difference?
Great question. So they're really two sides of the same coin, but approaches are different. So, like lab on a chip or like tissue on a chip, this is where there has been specific physiological processes that have been engineered to be put on a chip, and which cells are put in. And the idea is, yes, you're trying to mimic a physiological process. So spiritually, they share that, but really, it's let's create a system and put the cells in and try to force the cells to behave how we think the physiology behaves. Um, with tissue mimetic, we kind of take the inverse approach, and so instead of forcing cells into a container, our approach is more, let's create a container or a substrate that when the cells go in, they have the freedom and flexibility to build a microenvironment, and we watch what they do, and they start mimicking and making these physiological processes on their own. And so it gives us a little more flexibility. It's a little bit more broad, but really the difference is we're letting the cells tell us what they want to do and giving them that opportunity. And so I would say those are what the differences are, and they both have really great benefits. It just depends on what you're trying to do. I know with the tissue on a chip, what's great is there's a really hard push to use that for um, uh, screening different drugs and
Mhm.
to gain data for starting clinical trials. And that has been actually exceptional. I think what's great about what we do in parallel is we provide another technology where it's almost like we can double check it. Okay, so if we create this environment that maybe we're working towards something like creating vasculature, for example, if we actually get microvasculature to form in the blocks and the cells are building the blood vessels naturally, and then we're perfusing them, we get to see how that forms naturally, how they develop. So it also gives us some unique insights. And then there's this opportunity to complementary compare the two and say, okay, are we right on the physiology about how we think these systems are working and testing our drugs? And if there is a difference between the two, well, then on our side, we can kind of see how it's developing, and then on the tissue on a chip process, they can make adjustments. So to me, there's the we're not there yet, but the way they're evolving, they're going to be very complementary to each other and hopefully help um, a lot of researchers here in the coming years.
Very good. And then when people come to you, so if I were a researcher today, and let's say I have the need, I think potentially to come to you, what does it normally look like? What is the person that comes to you typically looking to have, and then also what do they bring whenever they normally come to you?
Yeah, so when they come to us, they typically have a problem along the lines of they have a really difficult cell line to grow, or they're adding some kind of agent to the cell line that's making it hard to grow over time to get data. And so the 2D format is just, it's not ideal that most labs are working. So we will send them some blocks to try. And then typically what happens is they usually like the blocks, and then they actually purchase them. But the whole time, our technical team is providing them technical support on the technology, helping them. They have brainstorming sessions with the scientists to actually make sure that our team understands what it is they're trying to accomplish, and while also learning about what they're doing, and then telling them what can happen with the blocks, how the blocks can be used. And we've actually had two cases where we've made some modifications, we've made some custom blocks for those collaborators once they told us what we were doing. So everybody in our company comes from a very collaborative background. And so that part is great. And I think that's what helps us with our clients is we want them to succeed. We're willing to make some adjustments when appropriate to that, but ultimately it comes back to communication and just helping them. And I think that's the great thing that's driving things forward. The other thing that's been happening, and I think I might have touched on it in our last podcast, but we also opened a CRO this past month, or this in the last 7 months, called Stella. And so now there's been cases where we have clients that are using our blocks, but then they'll ship us their samples back and we'll do imaging, or we will do, we have a whole histopathology lab where we'll embed it in paraffin and section it just like tissue. And so we can actually send them data and process their samples and send them back in formats where they may not have easy access to at their institute or may not have those resources. And so that's also been very powerful for them to realize how the technology helps them and move their studies forward.
And do they have to be a client of yours using your tissue-mimetic to use the CRO, or not?
No, they don't have to be. So far, they have been, but they do not have to be using our BioBlocks, our tissue mimetic technology. In fact, we have one client that we're working with that is not um, using the tech at all, but is having us do characterization on different tissues. And so that particular client doesn't use the block, but the fact that we have these resources are extremely convenient for this particular client, because we can go ahead, section, stain, image, and turn it around in a decent amount of time.
And how overall is this impacting the kind of the the overall field, in terms of what people are able to do?
Well, as we're getting out there, what people are starting to discover is that for the last couple of years, I think everyone is focused on kind of what I would call, in my mind, the secondary details of the technology is great because we don't have to subculture anymore, and it saves media and time. But what is happening with the field and what people are starting to realize and where the light bulb is starting to go off is that with this technology, it creates the opportunity to allow different cell types and different researchers to interface that previously would have taken a significant investment of resources and time to be able to work together if they were going to collaborate. And while that interest and enthusiasm is really high to collaborate, the time and the effort to get there to produce something meaningful was its own barrier. And now it's actually really easy for them to interface and collaborate. So it allows them to brainstorm new ideas and try new things. And so that's what we're seeing emerge with this technology right now. And the people that are getting it are really getting it.
And what do you, if you look at the outside forces that are going on today? I mean, I feel like there's a lot of things going on, with new technologies in our space. There's a lot
Mm-hmm.
going on with both AI as well as, just the foundational research methods. It, are there things that you feel like will provide, drastic advantages to researchers in the future, given your technology plus some of the changes that might be happening in the industry?
Yeah, I see this opportunity since you brought up AI, where the incorporation of AI with what we do, you could think of AI as the software part and us as the hardware. And I do see synergies being able to develop between them that really just accelerate the field. There's other technologies coming out. I think the interesting thing that is starting to happen from my vantage point is it's almost like there's this new renaissance going on in science where there are so many new technologies coming out and exploding that while they are great, there's a lag in the understanding and certain scientists, depending on where they are in their career, catching up and realizing the opportunity, and then others that have just traditionally done the old methods for so long, which are not bad, but just it's what they're comfortable with. And so I see all these disparities in the field of like the people that have caught on and are using the new technologies versus more of the old guard, the traditional, and what's trusted with the funding agencies. And so it's just a little chaotic right now, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think what you're going to see over the next 10 years is we're probably more technologies are going to come out, but people are going to start moving and trying these newer technologies and putting them together. And I think the real innovators will be the ones that can combine them and really leverage and take advantage of, say, like our technology, AI, and maybe something else. And it'll really allow them to differentiate themselves and what they can do in their careers or the technologies or therapies they can come up with. And so it'll be real interesting to see what happens with that. But yeah, I think we're really lucky to be in the current state that we are because there's just so many things out there that have the ability to help researchers in life sciences from all the way upstream on the front end to growing cells to the back end of analyzing molecules and different metabolites that come out. So like that's where AI and machine learning are going to be really transformative for streamlining a lot of that.
Yeah, I just think, I mean, where my mind certainly goes is like, you sort of have your in silico model. That in silico model, driven by
Hmm.
AI says this is the direction that you should go. And so you have like the ability to say, okay, but I also think that this other cell line and this other way that has already been deprecated, at some level inside of AI, it's just saying, no, this is not the way that you should go. it
Hmm.
would at least give you a methodology to, to kind of do both,
Yeah.
right? And
Yes.
I guess the other part that runs through the back of my mind as well is, will there ever be a future where you would want to edit with CRISPR, and
Uh-huh.
do something, with the cell lines as well,
Hmm.
and again use your tissue mimetic models.
Hmm. I don't know. I hope so. That would be interesting. One of the things that we're really hoping to do, and I hope continues to develop, but we have a goal of assisting with personalized medicine in the sense that with our technology, one of my personal goals has actually been to be able to take, say, someone has um, cancer and they need to take a biopsy of that cancer. Well, taking a small portion of that biopsy, digesting it, putting it in the block, and allowing it to grow, and then seeing if we can propagate the cancer outside the body and do a personal screen of different um, therapies from chemo therapy cocktails to radiation to maybe even, if appropriate, some of the new CAR T cell technology that's coming out. And so, right there in the hospital, you'd be able to do those screens and know which therapy is going to be most effective for that particular patient's cancer before ever starting anything or exposing them. Um, that's what I hope one day our technology is able to lead to and really help people with.
Very good. So I want to focus
Hmm.
on you for the last part of the interview here. What's the
Yep.
most important leadership advice that you've ever received?
Well, I get lots of leadership advice from different sources, and it comes and goes. But the one that I've gotten in the last year that has really made a big difference, and I really appreciate, may not sound as grandiose as some of the things out there, but it is actually taking ownership of your schedule and making sure that you always control your schedule. And the reason that's important and why it's been so valuable to me is, as a leader, there's a need to you need to make sure that you're authentic and you're on your A game, and part of that means um, in order to serve others, you need to make sure you take care of yourself first so that you have energy and yourself to give. Otherwise, if you don't and you let your health go, or you don't take care of you first, then you can't lead. And so, in the case for me, where that has really come into play, this past year, I took that to heart and I really changed up my schedule to fit more of my lifestyle. And so I could maintain my health and also just my mental focus. And for me, it has made a very big difference. And then with that too, I'd say the other thing that complements it is um, being aware of my own mood and energy for the
Mm.
people around me. And so, in addition to that, I can now I kind of I have this meter on the outside of my door, but it lets people know where my mood and energy is, so that when we're interfacing and whatnot, I know that if I'm not in a great mood or I'm low energy for the day, I may need to isolate myself. It's like I just need to do paperwork, and we're gonna move this meeting because it won't be as productive, and I can't be on my A game for you. And then when I'm ecstatic and I'm great, and it's like let's go problem solve. Um, just making sure that I'm being really efficient with how I work with people and how I serve them as a leader, and just that awareness has helped a lot too. And I've seen a couple of my um, colleagues start to take that in mind too. And so like they're sharing me, well, this is where I am today, and it's like, okay, cool. Now that I know where you are, I know how deep we can go into a conversation, and if we need to schedule a second meeting to, get to something challenging, we can do that. But make sure that we're communicating properly with each other, and we don't, mix signals either. So that's been really effective.
This sounds a lot to me like, well, I mean, there are a couple of places my mind went in that. One is I've had other leaders that have had people monitor them, So
Hmm.
not necessarily the leader themselves deciding their mood, and kind of, where they're at in the spectrum, but like an administrative assistant, or somebody
Hmm.
that's fairly close to you, kind of indicating, hey, look, either this is a good time or it's not a good time to bring up. Could be new topics or maybe sensitive topics or
Hmm.
whatever. Could
Hmm.
be those sort of things. The other thing that my mind went to as well is sort of I don't know if you've ever done like the disc profile or the colors exercise, but essentially they're
Hmm.
personality assessment. And
Yes.
similarly, they
Hmm.
sort of match you against, other people that, and how you might meet and show up for
Yep.
individuals that have personalities that are on the other side of the spectrum. And so, I mean, obviously, it's a really valuable thing, both on the leadership side, is in terms of understanding how you're showing up for people that are on your team. But then secondly, I think the idea that you had in terms of controlling your own schedule, and like, how
Hmm.
do you just make sure that you've got time for the things that you need as a leader, not just
Hmm.
you know every day being there in the grind, and grinding out the task as
Hmm.
well.
Yeah. Like I'll give you an example of where this has been really effective and helped. Something as simple as changing the time of day that I exercise. So I moved it from the beginning of the day to the middle of the day. And what that actually allowed, and where the opportunity came, is by doing it in the middle of the day, it broke up my day. It gave me a break, broke it into two halves. Then in the morning was when I can do all my focus time for the things that I need to get done as CEO. And then my afternoons became meetings, and then that way I know once again where my energy is, where my mood is. So I have that intense focus in the morning, but then in the afternoon when my focus may not be quite so narrow on what I have to do, I can open up and um, receive information and then really be there to listen, whether it's, an internal meeting, an external meeting. And so, that's just an example. But I think that awareness really does make a difference and also creates more empathy within our culture and our company. And that I think like I'm trying to set a good example, but now I have my teammates that are trying to do the same, and it's very refreshing because everybody's trying to help each other, and I think it also avoids a lot of misunderstandings and miscommunications too.
Yeah, absolutely true. Next, so the final three questions I've asked you before, but I
Yep.
wanted to get to, sort of dive in again. So, what inspires you?
So I was listening to our podcast earlier, and these are always fun. So they haven't changed much, but I'll say, I am still very much inspired by the people that tackle the really hard problems and go out there and help people. Whether it's the service members that are protecting our country, whether it's the engineers at NASA and SpaceX, trying to make more opportunities for us to explore space. I'm really inspired by those people that are trying to do these big hard things, but at the same time, um, even our medical professionals that are helping people and paying it forward. Those things, they get me motivated. They get me out of bed each day because um, it's like I want to. Those are the people I want to be like as I grow up. Even though I'm running a company, I've got the people I'm trying to be like and live up to the examples they've set.
Very nice. What concerns you?
When it comes to concerns, I think you know I still really miss a lot of the face-to-face communication in person. I think that leads to when we don't have that, there's some misunderstandings. And we talked last time about the digital age and whatnot, but communication is really important. So um, the ability to have a conversation over coffee or a cup of tea or a beer, I think is really important. And remembering that. that human interaction. For example, you know, I can't tell you, even though we're moving past COVID now, but when I have the opportunity and the ability to see someone in person, I always try to take it because it just makes such a difference if I can see them in person. I think part of it's just that human connection that is you don't get through a screen or a phone, but being there, there's once again the ability to generate empathy and just be human. And to me, my concern is we need to make sure that we focus on doing that. Um, because I think there's just too many opportunities for misunderstandings when we don't get to communicate directly. And I know we don't always have the opportunity to do that, but when we do, I think it's important.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, I mean, even with like virtual reality and things like that, they're trying to create
Hmm.
avatars of people,
Hmm.
I still sort of wonder, in the future, will we have more avatar type meetings that are virtual like
Hmm.
this one, versus the actual people? Because I sort of, worry that, again, a computer interpreting how you feel is a bit
Hmm.
different than what your face might actually show, right? So, yeah.
Right.
Last
Yeah.
question: what excites you?
Um, I am really excited by the new innovations in technology that I'm seeing. I'm excited, similarly to what inspires me, by people. Um, at this point, our team grew from 13 to 18. I mentioned that, and last time I said how proud I was of them. But what's been really inspiring, or really exciting and inspiring, is this new key talent we've hired. They're all working towards the same problem, and they're excited. And now, um, the what gets me excited every day is watching them come up with their own ideas and watching them work in teams, and then they're coming to me and they're like, well, what do you think about this? And um, I'm really working to just empower them, but seeing that drive and seeing the creativity that they're exhibiting and what it's doing not only in our company but the people around them outside of the company, and the positivity is just gives me goosebumps, if I'm being honest. And so, I'm really excited by that culture we have, and I'm hoping with not only what we do in the company, but even my own personal life and whatnot, I can continue to propagate that, and have others feel that, and go out and do good things.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And Dr. AJ
Yeah.
Mellott, thank you so much for coming on the Life Science Success Podcast and telling us about your
Hmm.
your updates with Ronawk. And yeah, I wish you the best of luck and a happy New Year.
Thank you, Donna. It was a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the invite, and happy holidays and happy new year to you. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks a lot.